A raised bed fed 5 people through a rationing winter for 11 cents in nails. And today you pay $180 for a plastic kit you cannot repair. Your great-grandparents grew a third of their own food on a plot the size of a parking space. And the grocery chains shut the program down the year the war ended to get you back into the aisle. If your family ever put food by for winter and you could not do it today to save your life, sit down, neighbor, because I have got something that belongs to you. Arthur Lang was a mill worker in South Boston. In the spring of 1943, he knelt on gray pebbles behind a 3-decker house. He rebuilt a raised bed from boards pulled off a bombed-out shipping crate. He held the corners together with copper pipe straps pinched from a plumbing job. His hammer had a hickory handle worn shiny by his father's hand. Before we go on, there's something coming for this country, and the news won't say a word about it till it's already on your doorstep. It comes down to one number: 3 days. That's what the stores hold for you. Your grandfather's pantry held a winter, and the difference was never money. It was knowing. 904 pages of that knowing in one book. Water, fire, curing, canning, the plants that heal and the ones that kill. SilasMercer.shop. Links below. All right, back to it. In the bed went lettuce, spinach, basil, kale, broccoli, chard, and 4 tomato vines already showing small red fruit, staked upright with those same copper straps. He drove wooden markers into the soil. Basil, broccoli, and on the biggest tomato, in pencil, Maximus. Small yellow marigolds ring the edge to keep the aphids honest. That bed fed his wife, his 3 children, and half his block through a rationing winter. Today, most of us could not tell you what a copper strap is for, and we pay $180 for a raised bed kit we cannot repair. But here is the twist. Every trick Arthur Lang used in that Boston yard is still legal to know, and most of them are quietly illegal to sell, illegal to teach in a classroom, or illegal to do at scale in some counties. The record now says the extension services had it right the first time and spent 40 years walking it back. I am Silas Mercer, 7th generation on this ridge. My people settled Mercer Ridge in the 1790s and never left it. Near everything I am about to count down, my grandfather Eli copied into a leather journal between his hospital shifts and his hog killings. And before he passed at 94, he made me swear the old ways would not die with me. This is me keeping my word. Your granddad knew every one of these, friend. Somebody just did not get the chance to pass them down to you. That is what I am here for. Some of what is coming down this list was outlawed outright. Some of it, a university quietly confirmed, beats the store-bought version you are overpaying for right now. Number 14, they classified that one a public health hazard in 3 states before 2009, and I am not touching it till we are most of the way down. Number 6, fewer than 200 old-timers in the whole country still do it right. And number 3, the Smithsonian spent 2 years studying it and admitted the extension bulletins from 1938 had it dead correct. None of these faded because they quit working. They faded because somebody got rich the day you forgot them. That is not on you, friend. They are good at selling. Before we count down, tap subscribe. Not for me, because we are pulling buried knowledge back into daylight, and you will want the next one they would rather you did not see. Let us count down from 25. Stop asking what we lost. Start asking who profited when we forgot. Number 25. Raised beds built from salvaged wood and copper pipe straps. Your great-grandfather did not buy a kit. He walked the alley behind the lumberyard on a Saturday and came home with 4 1x12s and a fistful of copper pipe hangers a plumber had thrown out. He nailed the boards into a rectangle, screwed the copper straps across every corner as reinforcement, and by Sunday afternoon he was filling it with black composted horse manure from the milk wagon route. Sears sold a rough 1x12 pine board for 23 cents in 1935. The whole bed, 4 boards and a handful of nails, ran him under $1. Today, a factory raised bed kit costs $180 and is made of extruded plastic that cracks in 2 winters. Nobody outlawed the alley board. Scott's Miracle-Gro just spent 40 years teaching you your yard was not a real garden without the branded product. Washington State University Extension came out in 2011 and said flat, any rot-resistant wood, brick, block, or recycled material works the same. $180 to imitate a scrap wood box. That is not a mistake, friend. That is the whole business model. Number 24, rendered lard as tool oil and handle preservative. She would render leaf fat in a cast iron kettle on a low fire, stirring for hours till the cracklings turned golden and the fat ran clear as spring water. She would pour off a jar for cooking and set another jar aside just for the tools. A rag dipped in cooled lard rubbed down the hickory handle of the hoe, and that handle did not crack for 30 years. Rubbed on the hammerhead, no rust through a wet spring. A 3-ounce can of 3-in-1 oil ran $1 in 1935. Lard was already in the kitchen. Then in 1911, Procter & Gamble put Crisco on the shelf and spent 60 years telling you animal fat would kill you. And the hardware store started selling you $8 tool oil in a plastic bottle. Nobody banned the rag. They just made sure you would feel like a fool holding it. Material science today confirms saturated animal fat forms a hydrophobic barrier that stops moisture cold. Same reason it worked in 1935, same reason it works this afternoon. Number 23. Wood ash sifted onto the garden as lime and potash. March, the snow melting, she would sift the fine white ash out of the stove into a galvanized bucket and walk it to the cabbage row. Sprinkled it barehanded. 100 pounds of hardwood ash carries 3 to 7 pounds of potash and lime, equal to about 35 pounds of ground limestone. A bag of garden lime today runs $12. A bag of potash fertilizer, $22. She burned 4 cords a winter and had every amendment she would ever need for free sitting in the ash pan. Eli wrote it in the 52 pages. A pound of ash to the row, no more, worked in shallow. University of Vermont Extension put it on paper in 2012. Wood ash is a valuable source of nutrients and raises soil pH. Nobody banned the ash bucket. Only about 8% of American houses still burn wood, and half of those bag the ash for trash pickup. $12 a bag, free in the stove. Somebody did the math on that, and it was not you. Number 22, saving seed from open-pollinated tomatoes, beans, and lettuce. Late August, she would pick the 2 heaviest tomatoes off the vine she called mortgage lifter, split them over a mason jar, and let the pulp ferment on the windowsill 3 days till the seed sank clean. Rinsed, dried on newspaper in the shade, folded into envelopes labeled in pencil, tucked in a tin box in the bedroom dresser. A burpee packet ran 15 cents in 1935 on wages of maybe $18 a week. She saved enough seed each fall to plant the whole garden the next spring for zero. Then in 1930 came the Plant Patent Act. Then 1970, the Plant Variety Protection Act. And by 1945, nearly every acre of Iowa corn was hybrid seed sold by Pioneer Hybrid you could not save from. Today's packet at the Garden Center runs $4.99. 2 pages, Eli's hand, dated spring of '39, laid out fermentation timing to the hour. Seed Savers Exchange, founded 1975, and the United States Department of Agriculture's germplasm program both say the same thing now. On-farm saved seed of open pollinated varieties adapts to your soil in 3 seasons and beats the store packet. The corporations do not hate you. They just needed you to buy the seed every spring, and you did. First pattern break. Here is where it stops being quaint and starts being the reason somebody bought a second house on a lake. Every item so far, the villain sold you back what your grandmother did for free, and we are just getting warm. Number 14, that one is still illegal in parts of the country to do at scale. Number 6 is the one only a couple hundred old-timers still do right. Number 21, dense Victory Garden style intensive planting. Arthur Lang's 15 by 25 bed in Boston fed 5 people, and the United States Department of Agriculture estimated in 1943 that more than 20 million Victory Gardens produced around 9 million tons of vegetables that year. That is about 900 pounds a household, off a plot the size of a parking space. Lettuce, spinach, basil, kale, broccoli, chard, tomatoes, marigolds on the edge, the same list the poster showed. Then in 1946, the federal promotion ended overnight. A&P and Safeway had trucks running again and needed you back in the aisle. There was no ban, the posters just stopped being printed. And a generation later, nobody remembered the diagrams. Cornell Extension and the University of Missouri both publish yield studies today confirming that a 15 by 25 bed, planted intensive, produces 400 to 600 pounds of vegetables a season. Same numbers the government printed in 1943. They did not outlaw the bed. They just quit reminding you it existed. Number 20, kitchen scrap and manure compost layered in the corner. Peels, coffee grounds, spoiled hay, chicken manure, coal-free wood ash, all layered in a wire ring at the back of the lot, turned twice a winter. Come April, it was black and crumbly and smelled like a forest floor. A well-run home heap on a quarter-acre garden made 1 to 2 tons of finished compost a year, which at 1930 wholesale fertilizer prices was worth several days' wages. Cornell's Waste Management Institute confirms properly made compost improves soil structure, water retention, and nutrient supply, and can substitute for a portion of synthetic fertilizer. The Environmental Protection Agency's 2018 numbers say Americans compost only about 6 million tons of yard waste out of tens of millions generated. The rest goes to the landfill in black plastic bags you paid for. A 40-pound bag of garden soil amendment at the big box runs $11. Your peels are worth more than the bag, and you are throwing both of them out. Number 19, companion flowers for pest control. Marigolds, nasturtiums, calendula. Those small yellow marigolds ringing Arthur's bed were not decoration. Marigolds put out a root compound that suppresses root knot nematodes, and nasturtiums pull aphids off the tomatoes onto themselves like a decoy. A packet of marigold seed ran 10 cents in the 1940s. A bottle of organic garden insecticide today runs $18 and needs 3 applications a summer. In the 1950s, the pesticide manufacturers, first the DDT sellers, and later the big chemical firms, spent a fortune convincing extension agents that a spray schedule was more professional than a border of flowers. Michigan State University Extension confirmed the marigold nematode effect on paper decades later. The flower still works. The $18 bottle still costs $18. Not a conspiracy, just how markets work. Number 18, sunken beds and hand-dug swales, catching rain off the roof. Your great-grandmother's garden was not flat. It dipped 2 or 3 inches below the surrounding grass, and a shallow ditch ran from the downspout right into it. A hard summer rain filled that basin and soaked 6 inches deep, and she did not touch a hose for a week. Then, in some states, Colorado the loudest, you could not legally catch rain off your own roof at any real scale. On the theory, the water belonged to downstream rights holders. That did not get partly walked back until Colorado House Bill 09-1129 in 2009 finally allowed limited rain barrel use for homes. There is a diagram in the journal, drawn 1948, of a sunken bed with a downspout feed sketched right in. The United States Department of Agriculture's Natural Resources Conservation Service publishes swale guides today. University of Arizona Extension teaches the same catchment shapes. The utility bills you $600 a year for water you could catch off your own shingles. Not on you, friend. They're just good at selling it back. Number 17, green manures. Sowing clover or rye in the fall, digging it under in spring. Every October he broadcasts winter rye or red clover across the empty beds, watered it once, and forgot it till March. The rye held the soil against wind. The clover pulled 40 to 100 pounds of nitrogen an acre out of thin air through the root nodules and put it in the soil. A bag of synthetic fertilizer today runs $45. A pound of clover seed runs $3. The old man dog-eared this one in the journal. After the war, the Haber-Bosch process made ammonia dirt cheap. DuPont and CF Industries flooded the market with synthetic nitrogen, and by the 1960s, extension bulletins had scrubbed the cover crop pages down to a paragraph. The United States Department of Agriculture's Sustainable Agriculture Research Program brought it back in the 1990s, and today they cannot publish cover crop guides fast enough. Nothing new, just the old page uncovered. Confession. First cover crop I ever put in, I was 22, and I broadcast rye so thick that by April I could not dig it under with a shovel. Had to bring the neighbor's tiller in. Eli laughed till he cried, and then he took the journal down and pointed at the line I had not read. Half a pound to the 100 square feet. Half a pound, not 2. Horse sense, eventually. Number 16, hand hoe cultivation with a whetstone sharpened edge. A dull hoe pulls weeds. A sharp hoe slices them a 1/4 inch below the crown, faster than walking, and they do not come back. She kept an Arkansas stone in her apron pocket and touched the blade up every 20 minutes. A hoe with a sharp edge lasts a lifetime and costs nothing. A disposable weed preventer landscape fabric runs $4 a foot and rots in 3 years. They did not outlaw the whetstone. They quit teaching it in shop class around 1971, and home economics had already stopped teaching the girls. A big box hardware chain does not make its margin on a stone. It makes its margin on the plastic. Fewer than 200 old-timers in this country still put an edge on a garden hoe the way Eli put it on his. That is who number 6 is going to be about. Getting close. Number 15, interplanting basil with tomatoes. Basil next to the tomato is not a chef's arrangement. The basil's volatiles confuse whiteflies and hornworms hunting by scent, and the shallow basil roots do not compete with the tomato's deep ones. A 4-inch basil start at the garden center runs $6 now. A packet of basil seed, $3. She grew both from her own saved seed for nothing. Extension programs at Rutgers and Ohio State have confirmed the confusion effect on hornworm oviposition. Not a myth, not folklore, physics of smell. The chemical industry never had a product to sell against basil, so they simply did not mention it, and a generation of gardeners forgot the arrangement was ever functional. Second pattern break, halfway down. Everything above this line they made unfashionable. Everything below this line they made frightening, complicated, or in some counties technically illegal. The Plant Variety Protection Act of 1970, the water rights laws, the coming up compost ordinances. Starting now, the villain is not a marketing department, it is a statute. Number 6 is the one only a couple hundred still do right. Number 3, the Smithsonian did the homework on. Hold on, friend. Number 14 is the one they worked hardest to bury. Number 14, home saltpeter beds for garden potassium nitrate. Under a lean-to behind the barn, your great-great-grandmother kept a pile of wood ash, straw, and old manure, kept it damp, and let it work. Nitrifying bacteria in the pile converted ammonia to nitrate, and after 18 months the top crust could be leached with rainwater to pull off potassium nitrate, one of the finest garden fertilizers ever made, and, incidentally, a controlled substance in a different application. Colonial households did this openly. By the 20th century, federal explosive precursor rules made anything past a small pile technically restricted at scale, and the Department of Homeland Security's ammonium nitrate purchase reporting rules layered on more after 2007. Nobody is going to arrest you for a coffee can of ash and manure at the back of the garden, but turn it into a barn-sized bed to sell, and the law is watching. I am not your lawyer, and I am not telling you to run a saltpeter operation. I am telling you that the small version, one your great-grandmother did to feed a rose bed, was ordinary work, and the record shows it made better fertilizer than anything on the garden center shelf. Category level, know it existed. Number 13, the Three Sisters interplanting. Corn, beans, squash in a home bed. Corn tall in the middle, beans climbing the corn fixing nitrogen, squash sprawling low, shading the soil, and hiding the fruit under prickly leaves the raccoons hate. A 3-foot by 3-foot patch fed a family a month's worth of calories. The United States Department of Agriculture extension bulletins of the 1920s laid it out plain, and by the 1960s, it had been scrubbed out of the modern vegetable gardening curriculum because it does not fit a monoculture spray schedule. Cornell's Northeast Sustainable Agriculture Research and Education Program brought it back on paper in the 2000s. Fewer than 1 in 10 home gardeners today plants it, and the ones who do report yields per square foot that outrun single crop rows. They did not ban the arrangement, they just quit printing the diagram. Number 12, fermented plant material tea as liquid fertilizer. She would stuff a 5-gallon bucket half full of comfrey leaves or nettles or grass clippings, fill it with rainwater, cover it loosely, and let it stew for 2 weeks till it smelled like the devil. That black stew, diluted 10 to 1, fed a tomato bed better than any bottled concentrate. A bottle of organic tomato food runs $14 for a quart. A bucket of nettle tea runs $0. There is no law against a bucket, but city ordinances in the last 20 years have gone after nuisance odors, and homeowners associations write the practice out of the covenants. Extension services at Colorado State and Oregon State both document effective use of plant tea fertilizers. It smells bad because it is working. The bottled version smells like nothing because it does less. Number 11, cold frames and cloches from old windows. An old 6-light window laid across 4 bricks over a bed of lettuce turned January into an extra growing month. A gallon glass jug with the bottom cut off became a cloche over a tomato start in April. She stretched a Boston growing season by 10 weeks with glass headed for the dump. A modern polycarbonate cold frame kit runs $300. Somebody knocked out a downtown building and the windows went to the landfill because it was cheaper than salvage. There is no ban. There is just a construction waste stream and a garden center margin that do not want you crossing. Any extension office in a cold state will teach the cold frame math today. 10 weeks of extra growing. Free. Number 10, Oyas. Buried unglazed clay pots for slow-release irrigation. An unglazed terracotta pot buried to the neck between 4 tomato plants, filled with water once a week and capped. The porous clay wept moisture out into the root zone 24 hours a day, using a fraction of the water a drip line uses. The technique goes back 2,000 years in the Americas, was standard in the Southwest into the early 20th century, and vanished when municipal water got cheap and pressurized in the 1940s. A drip irrigation kit at the big box today runs $90 and needs replacing every 4 years. University of Arizona Extension has published Oya studies confirming water savings of 50 to 70% versus surface irrigation. Nobody outlawed the pot. They just needed the water meter to keep spinning. Number 9, chicken tractors moved daily across the garden. A bottomless wire coop 4 feet by 8 holding 4 hens moved one length every morning across an unplanted bed. The birds scratched, ate weed seeds and grubs, dropped nitrogen-rich manure exactly where you wanted next month's tomatoes. By spring, the bed was fertilized, tilled, and pests cleaned without a machine. Backyard chicken bans in cities peaked in the 1950s as suburbs went up and property values became the priority. Many have been walked back the last 20 years, but roughly a third of American municipalities still restrict or ban hens on residential lots. There was no science behind the bans. There was zoning. Modern rotational grazing research at the United States Department of Agriculture confirms exactly what the chicken tractor does in miniature. Third pattern break. Every one so far. Somebody made it easier for you to buy the replacement than to remember the original. From here down, we are into the 4 hardest things on the list. Number 6 is the one only a couple hundred old-timers still do. Number 3, the Smithsonian confirmed. Hold on. Number 8, hugelkultur, buried log garden mounds. Dig a trench 3 feet deep, fill it with rotting logs and brush, cover it with sod upside down, then topsoil, and plant on the mound. The buried wood holds water like a sponge for a decade and slowly feeds nitrogen back as it decays. Central European homesteaders brought the practice to Pennsylvania and Wisconsin in the 1800s. It vanished when mechanical tillers made flat rows the industry standard around 1920. Permaculture research at Oregon State and multiple homesteading extension programs have published on it since the 1990s. A hugelkultur bed built once feeds itself for 8 to 12 years. A raised bed kit lasts 3. Number 7. Deep mulch of straw, leaves, and grass clippings, 6 inches thick. She never saw bare soil in her garden after May. 6 inches of straw between every row. No weeds germinated because no light reached them. Soil stayed cool and damp all July, and by fall, the bottom 2 inches were black compost. A bale of straw runs $7. A roll of landscape fabric runs $40 and lasts 1 season before it tears. You bought the roll? So did half the county. Ain't your fault they are good at selling. The mulch is on the ground where they cannot sell it back to you. Number 6. Grafting scion wood onto wild rootstock at the kitchen table. Fewer than 200 old-timers in the whole country still cleft graft an heirloom apple scion onto a wild seedling rootstock properly, blade held at the exact bevel, cambium to cambium, wrapped with grafting tape, and sealed with beeswax. Every commercial apple you eat is a graft, but the practice used to happen at kitchen tables from Vermont to the Ozarks. Nobody banned the knife. The nursery industry consolidated in the 1960s and 1970s and made it cheaper to buy a 5-year potted tree for $80 than to graft your own for 50 cents. The United States Department of Agriculture's germplasm program preserves scion wood today and will send you cuttings if you ask. The knife still works. The bevel still holds. Number 5. Root cellars dug into a north bank, keeping garden crops without electricity. 50 pounds of potatoes, 30 of carrots in damp sand, cabbages hung by their roots, apples on slatted shelves, all holding at 38 degrees through February without a wire running to them. A modern basement extra freezer runs $200 a year in electricity. A hole in a north bank runs $0 forever. Nobody outlawed the hole. Suburban subdivisions made lots too small, and building codes made the excavation permit expensive. And a generation forgot what a 50-degree damp room could hold. Number 4. Living fences of hedgerow, hawthorn, and Osage orange. Before barbed wire, a mile of thick hedgerow planted along a property line kept the cattle in, the deer out, and gave the songbirds cover to eat the caterpillars off your beans. Osage orange fence hedges were planted across 1 million acres of the American Midwest in the 1870s and 1880s. Then, Joseph Glidden's barbed wire patent in 1874 made the hedge unprofitable, and the fence companies did the rest. The United States Department of Agriculture has published in the last decade on hedgerows as biological pest control and windbreak. The hedge still works. The wire still costs. Number 3. Biointensive double digging, the John Jevons method with 1930s roots. 2 spade depths turned, one on top of the other, mixed with compost, 24 inches of loose, fertile bed. Yields per square foot 4 to 6 times conventional row cropping. The Smithsonian's Anacostia Archives and the University of California Cooperative Research spent years on the method in the 1980s and confirmed the numbers held up. The 1938 extension bulletins had it laid out already. Your great-grandfather knew before a research institution existed to confirm what he knew. Not lost, just buried under a spray schedule. Number 2. Interplanted perennial food plants alongside the annual garden. Rhubarb in the corner, asparagus in a strip along the fence. sorrel and horseradish behind the tool shed, a bed of strawberries. All of them planted once, and all of them producing for 20 years with almost no work. A modern grocery bill for one adult share of berries and asparagus and greens runs $600 a year. A perennial strip planted once runs over 20 years, less than $100 total. Nobody outlawed the rhubarb. The grocery just needed you to keep coming back. Number 1, grow to be sovereign, not to be sold to. Number 1 is not a trick. It is the thing every one of the other 24 was pointing at. Your great-grandparents did not garden for a hobby. They gardened because a garden meant the grocer could not set the terms of their supper. The fertilizer company could not set the terms of their soil. The water utility could not set the terms of their rain. And the seed company could not set the terms of their next spring. That is not gardening. That is sovereignty. A raised bed built of salvaged wood, held with copper straps, planted with saved seed, fed with your own compost, watered off your own roof, defended by your own marigolds, and harvested with a hoe you sharpened yourself, is a small, quiet declaration of independence, repeated every year. That was Arthur Lang, kneeling in the pebbles in South Boston in 1943. Arthur's garden fed his block through the rationing winter. The next spring, the federal Victory Garden program shut down. AMP's trucks rolled back into the neighborhood, and by 1948, nobody on that street was growing food anymore. Arthur kept his bed for 30 more years. His neighbors forgot who fed them. The seed catalog, the garden center kit, the $18 spray, the $90 drip line, the $200 chest freezer, every one of them a lease on your own dirt. Number 1 is refusing the lease. Number 1 is owning the ground. I am not your doctor. I am not your county extension agent. Some of what I laid out, the saltpeter beds, the chicken tractors, the rain catchment past a barrel, the law looks at sideways depending on where you live. And I will tell you flat, check your county before you scale any of it. This isn't prepper paranoia. Nobody's coming for your garden hoe. I'm not selling you fear, and I'm not selling you anything else either. Just the record. Pick one. Just one. Not 15. One thing this week. Save the seeds off the ripest tomato on your counter and let them ferment 3 days in a jar. Sift the ash out of your fireplace and sprinkle a handful along the fence line. Buy a packet of marigold seed for $2 and ring your tomato bed with it Saturday. Or dig a shallow dish into the ground under your downspout and plant a lettuce row in the middle of it. One thing. Do it, and something in you settles that hasn't settled in a long time. I ran the compost heap myself for a year, and by the second spring my soil was black enough that the earthworms had come back on their own. Cost me nothing. Fix something the bagged amendments never fixed. Tell me down below, did your grandparents do any of these? Which one? The one that gets the most comments is the one I build a whole video on next. A 300-year library, closing one old man at a time. Now you're one of the keepers. Your granddad knew every one of these. Somebody just didn't get the chance to pass them down to you. Now they're yours again. Next time we're going into the pantry. There is a $2 jar of powder your great-grandmother kept on the top shelf that put a whole industry out of business twice. Once in 1928 and again in 1961. And the record shows the government wrote 3 separate advisories trying to convince you it wasn't safe, while the university studies said the opposite. Wait till you see who bought the advisories. Subscribe if you haven't. Not for me. Because this record is being uncovered 1 week at a time. And the next one is worth the wait. Keep the old ways. They kept us.